In a previous video, I showed how I always have this view of my Finder windows available on the screen. And I always have these same tabs open, and I always even have it in the same place on my screen. That allows me to build a muscle memory so that when I want to go to one of my files, the common things that I access all day long, I don't have to go rummaging around to find a new window to find the file. I always know that I've got these short jumping off spots to get to these things. So in the comment to that video, Jeff asked exactly how I set that up. I'll walk through this tab by tab. You'll see I've got 5 tabs here. Obviously you can decide which tabs you want, but I encourage you to kind of settle on, I think 5 is a nice number. I'll show you why. Encourage you to settle on your own 5 tabs and decide what it is that you want, and then stick with them, because like I say, this is all about muscle memory. So the first 2 that we've got here are my personal system. So this is like my personal documents folder, which is this is my life admin system. And then the second one is the same for my business. That's my business's small business system. So everything in my life is in the first tab, and everything in my business is in the second tab. All right, so to start off, let's get these 2 tabs. So the first thing you're going to need, I've turned on my keyboard shortcuts on the screen, so you'll see what I'm pressing. I do a lot of this using the keyboard. So Command N is going to get me a new Finder window. And the first thing you might notice is that I don't have the sidebar there on mine. I tend to have that hidden by default. Command Option S will show and reveal the sidebar for you. And for this first part, we're going to need the sidebar. One of the annoying things about this is that when you reboot your Mac, it doesn't remember this layout. You've got to set it up every time. And so that's why these keyboard shortcuts are handy. Realistically, now this takes me about 20 seconds. I do still find it mildly annoying. I wish I didn't have to do it. And there's probably some way to automate it, but I don't bother, because now that I've done this a handful of times, it's 20 seconds. And because I only reboot my computer like once every couple of weeks, it really does pay itself off. The first and simplest way to get something, because the one thing you'll notice about these tabs on the top here is, see, I'm kind of at the top of the folder there. I can't go back. Like that P76 folder doesn't exist at the very top level of my Mac. It's buried in some folder somewhere. But in this particular view, it is at the top of that view. I'm kind of scrolling back and up to see if I can move myself further back, and there's nowhere to go. You know what I mean? Same with D25. And that's one of the main things. You want to be able to reset to this. It's like a home location. So here's the simplest way to achieve that, and that is to use these links in your favorites in the sidebar. Because if you've got something in your favorites and you click it, it will appear in a tab just like described. That is now the topmost thing in that tab. If you don't have it in your favorites already, you should know this one, and it's pretty intuitive. Let me just get rid of P76. I'll find the actual location of that folder, which is buried here in my iCloud documents. And if you want to put something in your favorites, you just drag it across. Fairly obvious. So let's hit P76 for the first tab. I'm going to Command T to get myself a second tab, and then load that one up with D25 Johnny.Decimal. So you can see already the first 2 tabs, that's how long that takes. They're 2 instant clicks. Just a note on these 2, I tend to prefer these in column view. You've got these 4 views. Icons is kind of useless. That's big chunky icons. You almost never want that. List view is quite nice. That's this thing where you can kind of use these expando triangles. I do use that for some things, but for these I prefer column view. That's Command 3, just because it's really nice. Like if we go to my personal system here, you can use up and down arrows just like you'd expect. You can use left and right arrows just like you'd expect, and it allows you to really quickly jump to things in your folder system. You can go left and right, and this is how I navigate this a lot of the time. I don't need to be reaching for my trackpad because this is quicker. One of the things you can do in macOS, Command O will open a file for you, or Command Down. Command Down goes into a folder. So if you're in a folder and you've got another folder selected, Command Down will take you into that folder. And then if you're on a file or a program and you Command Down, going down into that file is essentially the same as opening it. So Command Down is a nice one because you can Command Down all the way through to get to the thing you want to get to. So that's one of the reasons I prefer this column view, but it doesn't really matter what you use. One other quality of life habit that I get into here in my top windows is, you'll see now I've done something in my identity card here, and I want to leave this window in a clean state. When I come back to this window, I don't want to be in identity cards there at 11:13. I'm finished there now. So just like you clean up any other aspect of your life, just like a Johnny.Decimal theme is cleaning up and being tidy, I go back to the start of the window And if you click in just this empty area here, you'll see that deselects everything. You'll see the tab is now called P76 Johnny's Personal System, and that's me having reset. So I always leave that one at P76, and I always leave that one at D25. When you're done, just come back to the top, deselect everything. All right, third folder in this one, let's set this one up. It's Command T to get ourselves a new folder, is my dev folder. I actually haven't done, I'm working in this one, so that's why that's still selected. But normally I have this dev folder selected, which is full of my development stuff. Doesn't matter what it is. You're not going to have this one, you're going to have something else. But what's important is that that folder is in my home folder, and then there it is in dev. And again, you can see selecting it there, I've now got all this cruft over here that I don't want. I just want it as its own folder. I do happen to have that over here in my favorites, but if you don't, another trick is you can right click on this thing and open a new tab. And that does exactly the same thing. And you can now see there it is at the top most level of that tab, leaving me this old tab to just close and clean up. So that's the second way that I get myself these new tabs. At this point, I found a bug in this thing, which is that once you've created some number of tabs, it tends to be 4 or 5, the keyboard shortcut to hide the sidebar stops working. I think it's just a macOS bug. So at this point, I tend to hide the sidebar with Option Command S because I don't need it anymore. So just if you come across that bug, it's not just you. So the next 2 tabs you can see up above, I've got downloads and my desktop. I actually use these as floating tabs. I don't always have downloads and desktop here, but I tend to set those 2 up as good beginners, and then I repurpose these last 2 tabs depending on what I'm doing. So I'll show you that in a second. So Command T to get a new tab should be obvious enough. And then Option Command L is the shortcut for downloads. Who knows why? Presumably Shift Command L was used for something else. You can see all of these in the Go menu. So you can see most of these are Shift Command something, but for some reason, downloads is Option Command L. So just remember that, or you can just use this Go menu. You can just go to Go Downloads. You don't have to remember it. The second one, Command T, is desktop, which is Shift Command D for desktop. So there you go, downloads and desktop. Other useful ones here are Shift Command H for your home folder. And this is what I mean when I say I use these last 2 tabs as floaters, because I will often have something going on here and I'll think, oh, I want to get to my movies folder, for example. So my movies folder is where this video that I'm recording is going to end up, and then I'm going to need to move that across somewhere else. So here we can see this one. This is a nice example. This is in list view, and I can either use the right arrow to expand the movies folder, or what I tend to do, I use Command down, like we just talked about, and I can Command down, and the video that I'm recording is going to end up in this folder. Command up can take you back. Or once I'm done with these folders, once I'm done hacking around in here, I tend to just reset them using a keyboard shortcut. It's more about having the tab available. And I know that these last 2 tabs are repurposable. Just one other quick tip while we're here, because I don't know how many people know this, and if you don't know it, it's really one of the nice features of macOS. It's called Quick Look, and on many types of files, if you have a file selected and you want to have a look at what's in the file, you don't need to open the file and open up Word or Excel or whatever. You can just press the spacebar and it will quick look. It will just pop up this little view, and then you can press the spacebar again, and that works for all sorts of stuff. So really nice little shortcut to know as well. The other one that I showed you inadvertently down here is Shift Command and the square brackets, left and right, will move you between these tabs. That's another really nice one that you should learn. That works. Many places where you see tabs in macOS, you'll see Shift Command and the square brackets will work. For example, in Safari tabs, you can move around in exactly the same way. All right, that's neat. Let's just show you one last little tip. Down here, what you can do, the video that I am recording is this one, and it's going to go in video and animation. There we go. So you can drag things onto tabs. So let's just go to my home folder. Let's go to one of these movies. You can type MO, I type there, and that jumps straight down to movies. Command down will get us into there. Command down. This isn't the actual movie, but it doesn't matter. Just for a demo, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this into that 50 folder and release it, and that moved that over there. So there, that is in there. So you can set these tabs up as your drag targets, and then just drag something into them. If you didn't already do that, let's say you only had this one selected and you realize you want it in 50, what you can do, I just Command Z there to Z. What am I? Command Z, like a British person. And what you can do instead, if you don't have it in the right folder, if you linger over here that will pop itself open, and then you can hover on there, and that will now drop itself into that folder. So there's a bunch of ways you can drag and drop as well. Last tip is that you might notice that I have these beautifully defined tabs that look like tabs. Do you remember when things on a computer used to have definition? The reason my tabs look like that is because in my system settings, accessibility, display, I don't know how people work without this mode on, turn on increase contrast. Look at what happens when you turn it off. I feel like someone just smeared Vaseline on my eyes and I hate it. So you also notice I haven't updated to the latest operating system because I don't think it looks very nice. So there you go, increase contrast on, just makes life easier as well. Bunch of really simple little tips there. I hope that helped. If anything wasn't clear, let me know. And if you want any more of this sort of tips, let me know, because this stuff is really helpful. I talk about, being 1% more efficient when you use the computer. This is the sort of thing that if you get into these habits, you can save yourself 20 minutes a day, and 20 minutes a day added up is a lot of time. So I hope that was useful, Jeff.